So obviously, the big story in the news cycle right now is that of the two mass shootings last weekend. Very sad and tragic. A lot of people died, and watching the news coverage of these events, there's been a lot of talk about how these shooters were radicalized online, so to speak. Um, and looking at this news coverage, it reminded me of my memory of the very first mass shooting that really shocked America and became huge national news. That was of Columbine back in '99. Um, I'm quite a bit older than I look, so I was in high school when that happened in 1999. And thinking back to the news coverage of that event, obviously the internet wasn't what it is today. People didn't spend most of their time online. Sounds crazy, right? So yeah, back in '99, in the wake of the Columbine shootings, um, there was a push to really pin most of the blame for making the shooters do what they did on this band called Marilyn Manson. Some of you might not be old enough to even know who they are, but you can always Google them. Um, and yeah, so Marilyn Manson was getting the blame, and I think Nine Inch Nails got a little bit of it too. And the other thing that really got a lot of blame was the Matrix, which I think a lot of people forget. You know, that movie is like a cultural milestone. Everybody's like loves it. It's like a classic now, but it's kind of funny to think back and remember at one point it was considered something that may have influenced two kids to go shoot up their classmates. So, um, getting back to the news coverage, right? So, I think, and I understand a little bit. Uh, Obviously, not people go crazy and go shoot people, but I understand what as a because most of these shooters are male. I understand where that anger can come from. I was a bit of not a bit. I was quite angry and resentful as a teenager, and then also kind of persisted even into my mid late 20s. So I know that feeling. I mean, thankfully, I never got to the point where I thought I was going to hurt anybody or even myself. But yeah, I definitely have tapped into those dark feelings in my own life. And I remember the one thing that really helped me to keep cool and not lose it and do something terrible um, to other people was the fact that I had this what I like to call angry art, and actually, I guess Marilyn Manson would fit into that, but I never really liked that band's music um, personally, but I was growing up as a kid. Uh, I was the kid that was listening to like Nirvana, Nine Inch Nails, which I mentioned before, and I still love them though. Great band. Rage Against the Machine, and most of the other kids. I grew up in a pretty upper middle class town, but I was actually because my parents were poor immigrants, so and not to mention there was like almost no minorities in the town, which is even funnier. And this is not I'm not saying anything bad about the people I grew up with, because they were actually really nice people looking back. I mean, yeah, some of the kids would do a little bit of bullying. That's just part of it. But even the bullying wasn't even that bad compared to some horror stories I've heard from other places in America. Uh, so anyway, getting back, I was saying I was the odd kid out in what I wanted to listen to for music. The bands I just mentioned, most of the other kids were listening to like emo and kind of this happier pop punk stuff that I found really cheesy. What was the one? You Found Glory? God, that band sucks. There's actually some emo bands I like, but no, I know they were huge with the sort of punk kids in my high school. So yeah, so I really would find like this sort of inner peace when I listened to this angry music, which is it's one of the biggest misconceptions that people who are like more religious, conservative, they look at bands like Marilyn Manson, and actually that's what happened in '99. A lot of the religious groups were the ones coming out protesting him, saying, uh, he's from hell or something. It's just like a product of Satan. That's how he influenced these two kids to go shoot up their high school. Um, but I I always took the side of Marilyn Manson, and I always understood the importance and um, the gift that angry sort of music and art can. It's like a gift that can make you feel a sense of catharsis if you're someone who has dark and angry and negative feelings, right? Um, and so tying it back now to what's happening today is that um, because of the internet is so much more advanced now, people are spending so much time online on social media. Um, I think what's happening is that the the way that these angry males that are going on mass shootings or whatever, that they don't have a Nirvana or Nine Inch Nails right now in sort of the mainstream entertainment culture, right? I find it. I'm very grateful that I grew up as a '90s kid because I had um, this um, outlet. I mean, Nirvana was one of the most popular bands in the world, actually, not even just the country back then. So everybody knew who they were, and it's like that. That was so important that I was exposed to this, type of music, and I was able to find it and listen to it. And actually, I remember my parents didn't let me buy Rage Against the Machine's Evil Empire when I was like 13 or whatever. I remember that really pissed me off because of the parental advisory sticker or label or whatever. So yeah, that's I definitely was seeking out stuff that you weren't supposed to listen to at that young of an age. And so it's like this, not just catharsis when you listen to this angry music, because there's physically like a catharsis. I mean, literally physically, like that's why they say, for instance, heavy metal music, they call it headbanging music, right? Because you're actually feeling, and you can actually like feel like the stress relief through your body if you're listening to angry, fast music, heavy music. You know what I mean? And I know I'm going on about rock a lot, but I mean you can easily apply this to Eminem, and that's when I really started getting into Eminem when I was senior in high school. I mean Eminem is the same way, right? The people that his biggest fans are usually uh, not so different from the Marilyn Manson type fans, right? It's usually the kids that are angry, that they feel like losers, and they get to listen to Eminem, and it's like insane raps. I mean, the guy has some legendary lines to say the least. Um, so yeah, I was talking about the physical catharsis you feel, which is very important. It's not just sitting in front of your computer screen and like typing um, to people that you don't even know what they look like. You're not using your voice. It's all through your keyboard, right? That's very, very different from listening to angry music as a sense of venting and relief, sense of relief, right? The physical aspect of it, and also, perhaps even more importantly, um, when you're listening to or a big fan of angry music, you also have this community of other people that are also fans of the artists that you can connect with, and you can go to shows and see them and talk to them. They're real people. You can touch and feel them and see them, and they're like, it's so different from what's happening today with online radicalization, where people are just hiding behind their computer screens, and uh, you know all you're getting is thoughts. That's the problem. It's just thoughts on a computer screen, and that's so different from hearing actually other people talking to them in person. Again, like going to a Marilyn Manson show, or like I don't know, maybe you're a Metallica fan. Going to a Metallica fan, it's like you actually get to be around the people, and you're like accepted somewhere, and there's a place you can go to where you can feel like uh, you're not a loser, because again, a lot of these kids who are big fans of these bands just feel very, very low self-esteem and like they're not a part of society, right? So yeah, that's where I really wanted to go with this video. uh, If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, and I'll be back very soon. Peace.